So before we even get into whether the Daedric Prince of Knowledge has been feeding us complete nonsense this whole time, we need to go way, way back, like before dragons ruled the skies, before the Dwemer vanished into thin air, leaving only their machines behind, before the Chimer became Dunmer, before anything in Tamriel that remotely makes sense existed at all. We're talking about the absolute beginning of everything. Right at the start, we need to talk about where Hermaeus Mora actually came from, because this is legitimately one of the strangest origin stories in all of Elder Scrolls lore. According to the Imperial Census of Daedra Lords, which is basically this scholarly attempt to catalog and understand the princes, Hermaeus Mora claims he's one of the oldest, if not the oldest, Daedric prince in existence. Not just old, not just ancient, but literally present at the very moment mortality and the mortal world came into being. His origin story, at least the one he tells, goes like this. When the Aedra were creating Mundus, the mortal world, they had all these concepts and ideas floating around in the primordial chaos before time even existed. They were essentially brainstorming reality itself, throwing ideas at the wall to see what would stick. Some ideas made it into the final product and became the foundation of everything. The concept of linear time became Akatosh, the dragon god. The concept of space, nature, and the physical world got woven into the fabric of Nirn itself. The idea of death and the cycle of mortality became Arche. Every piece that made sense, every concept that worked, got incorporated into Mundus. But there were scraps. Discarded concepts. Ideas that the Aedra looked at and said no, that's not going to work, or that's too strange, or mortals couldn't handle that. Thoughts that were too abstract, too dangerous, too incomprehensible for the kind of reality they were trying to build. Maybe these were concepts that contradicted each other, or ideas that would make existence too chaotic, or knowledge that would destroy anyone who tried to understand it. And those discarded scraps somehow coalesced into consciousness. They became Hermaeus Mora. Think about that for a second. The Prince of Knowledge claims he's literally made from the ideas the gods threw away during creation. He calls himself the first secret whispered at the dawn of time, the first bit of knowledge that was deemed too dangerous or useless to include in reality. That's either the most poetic origin story in the series, or it's the universe's way of saying Hermaeus Mora is cosmic garbage that gains sentience. Now here's where it gets complicated. The Imperial Manonauts, these crazy mages who apparently can travel through oblivion and verify stuff, supposedly confirmed that Hermaeus Mora's influence on fate and time is real and legitimate. If their findings are accurate, that would mean Mora existed before pretty much everything else, watching reality form around him like some eldritch librarian taking notes on how creation itself worked. He would have witnessed the convention, the moment when linear time was established. He would have seen Lorkhan's heart get ripped out. He would have watched the Aedra sacrifice their divinity to create the mortal world. But here's our very first red flag about trusting anything this tentacled horror says. He's the Prince of Knowledge and Memory, right? His whole deal is knowing everything. His sphere is the scrying of the tides of fate, of the past and future, as read in the stars and heavens. He should know everything that ever happened, and everything that will ever happen. Except, we're gonna find out that's complete nonsense. He doesn't actually know everything. He has massive gaps in his knowledge. He actively hides information, even from himself. And worse, he's been caught lying repeatedly about what he does and doesn't know. So, if the being whose entire existence revolves around being all-knowing admits to not knowing things, what does that say about everything else he's told us? How much of his origin story is even true? Did the Aedra really discard ideas that became him? Or is that just a story he tells to make himself seem more important and ancient than he actually is? The thing is, we have no way to verify any of this. The Aedra who supposedly discarded those ideas are either dead, diminished beyond communication, or they're the 8 divines who aren't exactly chatty. The event happened before recorded history, before mortals existed to write anything down. The only source we have for Hermaeus Mora's origins is Hermaeus Mora himself. And as we're about to see throughout his entire history, trusting Hermaeus Mora at his word is a mistake every single time. Unlike basically every other Daedric prince who at least bothers to take a humanoid shape sometimes, Hermaeus Mora just looked at the concept of having a relatable form and said, nah, not for me. While Azura appears as a beautiful woman, Boethia takes warrior forms, and even Sheogorath looks human most of the time. Mora decided to go full cosmic horror from day one. He appears as this writhing, pulsating mass of tentacles, eyes, and sometimes claws. In Daggerfall, the oldest game where we see him, he showed up as this greenish pile of what can only be described as sentient sludge with tentacles at the bottom and multiple eyes scattered randomly across his body, plus 4 claws sticking out. It was creepy, but it was also limited by the graphics of the time. By the time we get to Skyrim, especially with the Dragonborn DLC installed, the developers had much better graphics to work with, and they took full advantage of that to make Mora properly terrifying. He evolved into this much more detailed mass of dark green and black tentacles, all writhing and moving independently like they each have their own consciousness. His eyes, and he has many of them, are scattered throughout the mass, constantly watching, constantly observing. But there's usually one main eye that's larger than the others, and this is where things get genuinely unsettling. If you play Skyrim in third person and talk to Hermaeus Mora, his main eye doesn't follow your character. It doesn't track the Dragonborn standing there in Apocrypha or in front of a black book. No, his eye follows your camera. He's not looking at the last Dragonborn, he's looking at you, the player. The person sitting on their couch with a controller or keyboard. Some people think this is just a bug that Bethesda never got around to fixing because Skyrim has plenty of those. But given everything else about Mora, given how deliberately Lovecraftian his design is, this was almost certainly completely intentional. The Prince of Knowledge is breaking the fourth wall to remind you that he sees everything, including you. The player exists on a level above the game world, but Mora is aware of that level. He knows there's something beyond the reality of Tamriel, something controlling the Dragonborn's actions, making their choices. And he's staring directly at it, at you. His entire aesthetic is ripped straight from H.P. Lovecraft's work, and the developers weren't even subtle about it. He looks like what would happen if Yog-Sothoth had a baby with the Necronomicon. The tentacles, the way knowledge from his realm drives people insane, the completely alien mindset that mortals can't comprehend, the emphasis on forbidden knowledge that destroys those who seek it. All of this is classic Lovecraftian horror. Even the Ogma Infinium, his most famous artifact, appears in Skyrim to be made from different skins bound together, which is a direct reference to how the Necronomicon is often depicted in popular culture as being bound in human skin. But Mora isn't just some copy-paste Lovecraft monster dropped into Elder Scrolls. He's got his own twisted logic and his own history that predates any of Lovecraft's work existing in our world. In ancient Atmora, back before the Nords even came to Skyrim, they call him Hermaeus Mora, the Woodland Man. Now, this name is bizarre on multiple levels, because it sounds like it should belong to some forest deity like Ifre, the Bosmer god of nature, or Kain, the Nordic goddess of the sky and storm. But the ancient Atmorans knew Hermaeus Mora as something completely different. He was the tempter, the one who lurked in desolate places, in the wilderness far from civilization, offering forbidden knowledge to trap unwary souls who wandered too far from safety. He had absolutely nothing to do with hunting, nothing to do with protecting the forest, nothing to do with any of the typical things woodland deities care about. The Woodland Man wasn't a protector of nature. He was a thing hiding in nature, waiting for someone curious enough or desperate enough to accept what he was offering. The name probably comes from the fact that Mora means forest or wood in Aldmeris, the old elven language. But the actual translation is closer to the one who shares terrible secrets in wilderness places rather than anything benevolent. He's the knowledge you stumble across when you're lost in the woods, far from help, far from anyone who could warn you not to listen. He's the answer to questions you shouldn't have asked, delivered in a place where nobody can stop you from accepting it. The Skald people on Solstheim have known about Hermaeus Mora longer than most civilizations have existed, and they don't mince words about what he is. They call him the demon of knowledge. Not the god of knowledge, not even the prince of knowledge, the demon of knowledge. Their oral traditions, passed down from shaman to shaman for thousands of years, are filled with tales about Hermaeus Mora trying to trick them, manipulate them, seduce them with offers of power and understanding. And the Skal resisted him for literally thousands of years, through nothing but sheer stubbornness and a cultural emphasis on protecting their sacred knowledge from his influence. They managed to keep their secrets safe until a certain dragonborn came along and ruined everything, but we'll get to that absolute disaster later. The Skal understood something that most scholars and mages never learn. Hermaeus Mora's knowledge always comes with chains attached. Every secret he shares is a hook. Every answer he provides comes with a dozen new questions. Every power he grants makes you just a little more dependent on him. Until one day you realize you're not a scholar using his library. You're a tool being used by the librarian. Now let's talk about Mora's realm, because Apocrypha is nightmare fuel even by the standards of Oblivion's various hellscapes. Other Daedric princes have pretty straightforward realms. Mehrunes Dagon has Deadlands, which is basically just lava and destruction everywhere. Molag Bal has Cold Harbor, which is a dark, twisted mockery of Nirn designed to torture souls. Sheogorath has the Shivering Isles, split between mania and dementia. They are horrible places, but you can understand what they are at a glance. Apocrypha is different. Apocrypha is insidious. Imagine an endless library. Not metaphorically endless, literally infinite. The sky above isn't really a sky. It's this sickly, toxic green color that seems to pulse with its own light. There are no stars, no sun, no moon, just that green glow that permeates everything, making it impossible to tell if it's day or night, or if those concepts even apply in this place. Instead of floors in any normal sense, you're walking on pathways and bridges made from who knows what, suspended over an ocean of black, poisonous ink. That ink isn't just sitting there being liquid. It writhes, it moves. Tentacles emerge from it randomly to slap at anyone who gets too close to the edge. If you fall in, the damage isn't just physical. The ink is acidic and corrosive, eating away at anything that touches it. But more than that, it seems to drain something vital from those who enter it, like it's pulling at your very essence, trying to dissolve you into the sea of forgotten knowledge. The books themselves tower into that green sky, stacked impossibly high in formations that shouldn't be structurally sound. They form mazes, corridors, entire architecture made purely from bound knowledge. Every single book has a black cover. Every single one has Hermaeus Mora's symbol emblazoned on it, and none of them have titles on the spines. You can't browse Apocrypha looking for a specific tome. You have to open books at random, hoping one of them contains what you're searching for, knowing that most of them probably contain knowledge that will drive you insane if you comprehend it. And speaking of things that will drive you insane, the ghosts. Throughout Apocrypha, you find the spirits of mortals who came here seeking knowledge and never found their way out. They just wander forever through the stacks, still searching for whatever answer they were looking for when they died. Some of them have been wandering for so long they've forgotten what they were even looking for. Others know exactly what they're seeking but can't find it, no matter how long they search. They're trapped in an endless loop of almost understanding, almost finding what they need, but never quite getting there. The entire plane is filled with environmental hazards that seem specifically designed to kill scholars. There's darkness, literal patches of shadow, that will damage you if you step into them unless you're carrying a light source. These aren't just shadows from lack of light. They're somehow active, somehow malicious. Stand in them too long without protection and they start tearing at you. The game mechanics treat it as health damage, but the implication is that the darkness is consuming you, pulling you apart on a level beyond just physical harm. Floating through all of this are pages being pulled by invisible strings, animated by forces you can't see. Storms made of notation blow through randomly, and I'm not being metaphorical. There are literal storms composed of written words and symbols that can knock you around. The atmosphere itself feels thick, oppressive, like the weight of all that accumulated knowledge is pressing down on you, making it hard to think, hard to breathe, hard to remember why you came here in the first place. And then there are Mora's servants patrolling everything. The Seekers are these robed Daedra who actually read the books, or at least appear to. They glide around the stacks, and if they spot an intruder, they don't just attack, they split into multiple copies of themselves. Fighting one Seeker quickly becomes fighting 2 or 3, and they can turn invisible and teleport around the battlefield, making them incredibly annoying to pin down. The Lurkers are so much worse. These are massive, hulking Daedra that emerge from the ink seas specifically to attack anyone who gets too close to the water's edge. They're built like giants, with long arms ending in claws that can tear through armor like paper. But their real weapons are their tentacle attacks. They can spray poison that spawns tentacles from the ground to grab at you. They can spit acid from their mouths. They can do this stomp attack that creates a mass of writhing tentacles at their feet that will poison and damage anyone caught in it. Neither the Seekers nor the Lurkers are friendly. Neither of them are interested in answering questions or helping scholars find what they're looking for. They exist solely to protect Mora's hoard of knowledge from anyone who might actually try to use it. The library isn't designed to share information. It's designed to hoard it, to keep it locked away where only Mora can access it, and to ensure that anyone who enters never leaves with their sanity intact. But here's what makes Apocrypha truly, deeply insane on a level that defies normal comprehension. Time doesn't work right there. Not just in the time flows differently way that some Oblivion realms experience, where a day in Nirn might be a year in that realm, or vice versa. In Apocrypha, time is completely broken, shattered, non-linear in ways that make mortal minds scream in confusion. Past, present, and future blend together like colors bleeding into each other on wet paper. Events that happened thousands of years ago exist simultaneously, with events happening right now and events that won't occur for centuries to come. You could be reading about the fall of the Septim dynasty while also witnessing the rise of the First Nordic Empire, while also seeing prophecies about empires that won't exist for another age. All of this happening at once, in the same physical space, overlapping and interpenetrating in ways that shouldn't be possible. The Black Books embody this temporal chaos. They contain knowledge from events that haven't happened yet, from timelines that might never happen, from alternate realities where different choices were made. Some books describe the future in past tense. Others discuss historical events as if they're still ongoing. Still others contain information about possibilities that never came to pass, but somehow still exist as recorded fact in Mora's library. Hermaeus Mora himself exists across all time simultaneously. He can see the past because he was there. He can see the future because, from his perspective, it's already happened. He can see alternate timelines because all possible outcomes exist in his library. When he says he can see fate, he's not exaggerating. The books in his library describe every possible way events could unfold, every choice that could be made, every consequence that might occur. They contain the complete history of things that were, things that are, things that might be, and things that could have been but weren't. The Infinite Archive, which is a sub-realm within Apocrypha, contains historical records of all of this. It's described as a vast repository of knowledge embedded deep within Hermaeus Mora's realm. Just contemplating the scope of how this place works, trying to wrap your mortal mind around the concept of a library that contains every possible book, every possible piece of information, is enough to send people into a complete dissociative state. Scholars who try to map Apocrypha end up staring at walls, muttering about impossible geometries and spaces that contain more information than should physically fit within them. And then there's the Infinite Panopticon. This is even worse than the main library. It's a pocket realm within Apocrypha that exists outside the normal time and space of Apocrypha itself. Read that sentence again. It's a place outside, a place that's already outside normal reality. Nothing inside the Infinite Panopticon follows any rules that mortals understand. It's where Mora keeps his most closely guarded secrets, the knowledge too dangerous for anyone but him to know. the knowledge that even other Daedric princes probably shouldn't have access to. The entrance to the infinite panopticon constantly changes location. It never appears in the same place twice. Even if you somehow found it once, you wouldn't be able to find it again because it would have moved to somewhere else in the infinite library. And it's defended by an army of Daedra and constantly shifting corridors that are specifically designed to keep everyone out. The maze doesn't just confuse you. It actively reshapes itself to ensure you can't reach the center, can't access what's stored there. Think about what that means. Hermaeus Mora, the prince who claims he wants to collect and preserve all knowledge, has created a special vault where he locks away knowledge that even he doesn't want found. He's not just hoarding information, he's specifically, deliberately hiding certain truths from anyone who might seek them. For a being whose entire purpose is supposedly to know and preserve everything, that's a massive contradiction. What kind of knowledge is so dangerous that the Prince of Knowledge himself won't let anyone access it? The answer probably terrifies even him. And if Hermaeus Mora is scared of something, everyone else should be absolutely horrified. The black books themselves deserve their own massive section because these things are absolutely not normal books in any sense. According to Neloth, the Dunmer mage who studied them extensively, nobody actually knows where the black books originally came from or how they're made. What we do know is that the materials are prepared in a place called Gwyre's Wind, which is a delve in Apocrypha itself, a location inhabited by seekers and clanfears where the raw components are assembled. Then, these components are presented to Hermaeus Mora himself to pen and complete. He personally writes these books, or at least finalizes them. The covers are made from lurker leather, the skin of those massive Daedra that patrol the ink seas. The books are bound with thread from Mephala's spiral skein, which means Mora has some kind of arrangement or alliance with Mephala, the Prince of Lies, Secrets, and Murder. Already that's a concerning partnership right there. The pages are made from paper crafted from trees that have never seen sunlight. Think about what that means. These trees are grown in complete darkness, in some pocket of oblivion where the sun has never risen and never will. The wood pulp used to make the paper comes from plants that have never experienced light, warmth, or any of the things normal trees need to survive. What kind of twisted properties does paper made from those trees have? What secrets does it naturally contain just by virtue of being made from something that grew in eternal night? And the ink. The ink is even worse. It's seeker ink, brewed for a minimum of 10 years before it can be used. 10 years of preparation just to get ink suitable for writing a black book. What are they doing to that ink during those 10 years? What ingredients go into it? What rituals or processes transform it into something capable of carrying the words of a Daedric prince? When you read a black book, and this is important, tentacles literally burst from the pages. This isn't metaphorical. The moment you open one of these tomes to read what's inside, physical tentacles made from ink or shadow or something else emerge from the book itself and wrap around you. They drag your consciousness, your mind, your soul, whatever you want to call it, straight into Apocrypha, pulling you through the pages like the book is a portal. Your body stays behind in Tamriel, left standing or sitting wherever you were when you opened the book, functioning as an anchor that you can return to. But your mind is gone, pulled into Mora's realm, forced to navigate his trials. Most people who read black books go completely insane. Their minds can't handle what they experience in Apocrypha. The information they're exposed to, the impossible geometry, the non-linear time, the weight of infinite knowledge crushing down on their consciousness, it breaks them. They come back to their bodies, if they come back at all, and they're not the same. They babble about things they saw. They write incomprehensible notes trying to explain revelations they had. They lose the ability to interact with normal society because they've seen something that reality can't accommodate. Those who don't go mad immediately and actually manage to complete the trials inside the Black Book do come back with incredible power. They learn things mortals aren't supposed to know. They gain abilities beyond what normal magic can grant, but they also come back changed in subtle ways that get worse over time. The first signs are usually the eyes. People who read multiple black books start developing these spots of darkness in the whites of their eyes, like the ink from Apocrypha has stained their vision permanently. Then they start losing self-awareness, forgetting who they were, losing touch with their own identity. Their personality shifts toward obsession, toward seeking more knowledge, more power, more black books. And eventually, they lose their minds entirely. They might not realize it when it happens. From their perspective, they're finally understanding things, finally seeing clearly for the first time. But from everyone else's perspective, they've gone completely mad, speaking in riddles, obsessed with arcane minutiae, unable to focus on anything except seeking the next piece of forbidden knowledge. The books themselves are scattered across Tamriel, hidden in dungeons, ruins, and secret vaults, just waiting for someone curious enough or desperate enough to crack them open. And once you do, once you've read even one black book and survived the experience, you're marked. Hermaeus Mora knows who you are now. He's seen your mind from the inside. He knows your fears, your desires, your weaknesses, and he'll use all of that against you the next time you encounter him. You can technically leave Apocrypha by reading any black book while you're inside the realm, which acts as an exit portal booting you back to Tamriel. But the knowledge and power you gain comes with a price that isn't immediately obvious. You become one of Mora's instruments. You're not serving him consciously, at least not at first. But you're connected to him now. Part of your soul has touched his realm, been exposed to his influence, and that connection doesn't go away. He can pull at it whenever he wants, influencing your thoughts, nudging you toward actions that serve his purposes, slowly turning you into another tool in his collection. And the really insidious part? Most people who read black books don't realize this is happening. They think they're using the power they gained. They think they're in control. But they're dancing on strings they can't see, serving purposes they don't understand, moving toward a fate that Hermaeus Mora saw coming the moment they opened the first book. Then there's the Ogma Infinium, Mora's most famous artifact and arguably one of the most dangerous items in all of Elder Scrolls lore. This isn't just a black book with more power. This is something else entirely. The tome was written by Xarxes, also known as the Ageless One, who was the scribe of Auri-El, the ancient elven god of time and the elven version of Akatosh. Xarxes was renowned as one of the greatest scholars who ever existed, someone whose knowledge and wisdom were legendary even among the gods. He married a being named Ogma, who was literally created from his favorite moments in history, given form and life from the memories Xarxes treasured most. And somewhere along the line, Hermaeus Mora gave Xarxes knowledge, terrible, forbidden knowledge that couldn't come from any mortal source, knowledge that probably shouldn't exist at all. And Xarxes wrote it all down in a tome that he named after his wife. Whether Ogma was honored by this or horrified, we don't know. But the Ogma Infinium contains information so dense, so powerful, that simply trying to read it can cause your brain to hemorrhage. Most people who attempt to read the Ogma Infinium die instantly. Their minds literally can't process the rate of information intake. It's like trying to download an ocean through a straw. The sheer volume of knowledge flowing into a mortal brain causes physical, catastrophic damage. Blood vessels burst, neural pathways overload. The brain essentially melts from information poisoning. For the rare individuals strong enough to survive reading it, the book contains 3 paths you can choose from: Steel, Shadow, and Spirit. Each path represents a different approach to power, a different understanding of reality. Choose Steel, and your combat abilities, your physical prowess, your understanding of warfare and strength increase dramatically. Choose Shadow, and your cunning, stealth, theft, and subterfuge abilities expand beyond what training could ever grant. Choose Spirit, and your magic, your connection to the divine, your understanding of the supernatural grows exponentially. In Daggerfall, the book gave you 30 attribute points to distribute however you wanted. That might not sound like much, but in that game's mechanics, that's enormous. That's the equivalent of months or years of dedicated training compressed into the moment it takes to read a book. In later games, it permanently increases multiple skills by significant amounts. We are talking about skills jumping by 5 levels each, which represents months of practice condensed into minutes. But once you read it, the book disappears from your possession. It's classified as a tract perilous, which is scholarly terminology for "this knowledge will probably kill you." You don't get to keep it, you don't get to lend it to friends. You get one shot at choosing a path, and then the tome vanishes, presumably returning to Apocrypha or to Mora's current hiding spot for it. Throughout the series, Hermaeus Mora has offered the Ogma Infinium as a reward for various tasks, and the tasks tell you a lot about his character. In Daggerfall, he wanted you to kill a noble who had offended him, not someone who wronged you, not someone who threatened reality, just some noble who managed to annoy a Daedric prince, probably by hiding knowledge from Mora or tampering with his information in some way. "Kill this person for me," Mora said, "and I'll give you the most powerful book in existence, a simple hit job in exchange for godlike power." In Oblivion, he required you to collect one soul from each of the 10 sentient races in Cyrodiil. You had to trap a Nord soul, an Imperial soul, a Redguard, Breton, Bosmer, Altmer, Dunmer, Orc, Argonian, and Khajiit. 10 people had to die so their souls could be trapped in gems and delivered to Hermaeus Mora like tribute. He wanted a sample of every type of mortal consciousness, and he was willing to give you the Ogma Infinium in exchange for committing what amounts to serial murder. The pattern is always the same. Hermaeus Mora wants something, usually something that requires you to do terrible things. You do the dirty work, and then he rewards you with forbidden knowledge that might drive you mad. But here's where the story gets weird, and it's one of the few times someone actually got one over on Hermaeus Mora. The Khajiit, the cat people of elsewhere, have this legend about Rajhin, their god of thieves. According to Khajiit mythology, Rajhin is not just a great thief, but the greatest thief, someone whose skills transcend mortal limits and approach the divine. And according to their stories, Rajhin stole the Ogma Infinium from Hermaeus Mora himself. The tale goes that Rajhin used the Ring of Kaeti, which grants invisibility, to sneak into Apocrypha undetected. Hermaeus Mora, with all his knowledge and all his ability to see through secrets, couldn't spot the invisible Khajiit wandering through his library. Rajhin then convinced Mora that he was completely imaginary, just a figment of the prince's imagination, by challenging Mora to manifest all of his countless eyes at once to prove that Rajhin was real and not just a mote in his eye. Hermaeus Mora, apparently taking the bait, tried to manifest every single eye he possessed simultaneously. Every eye in every book, every eye in every seeker, every eye scattered throughout Apocrypha. The strain of maintaining that many sensory organs at once, of processing that much visual information simultaneously, was too much even for a Daedric prince. While Mora was struggling with sensory overload, Rajhin grabbed the Ogma Infinium and ran like hell. According to the legend, Mora does occasionally manage to find and reclaim the book, but only because Rajhin lets him have it back for a while. The implication is that Rajhin can steal it again whenever he wants, and Mora knows this, but there's nothing he can do about it because Rajhin is simply that good at thievery. Now, if this story is true, it means the all-knowing, all-seeing Prince of Fate and Knowledge got completely bamboozled by a cat burglar who convinced him to basically overload his own senses. The being who claims to know everything was tricked by someone pretending to be imaginary. Let that sink in for a moment. And if the story isn't true, if it's just Khajiit mythology and exaggeration, that raises different questions. Why would the Khajiit tell a story about successfully robbing Hermaeus Mora specifically? Most cultures don't make up stories about stealing from Daedric princes because that tends to attract unwanted attention from said princes. The fact that this legend exists and persists suggests that something happened between Rajhin and Mora, something embarrassing enough that Mora might prefer everyone think it was just a legend. Either way, whether it's completely true or partially true or entirely fabricated, the Ogma Infinium has a history of being less controllable than Hermaeus Mora would like. It disappears. It reappears. It grants power to people Mora didn't intend to empower. For an artifact that's supposed to be completely under his control, it sure seems to have a mind of its own. And that's another crack in Mora's facade of omnipotence. If he can't even keep track of his own most powerful artifact, if it can be stolen from him, if it ends up in the hands of people he didn't choose, then maybe his control over knowledge isn't as absolute as he claims. Now, we need to talk about Miraak in extensive detail, because this is where Hermaeus Mora's pattern of manipulation really starts to crystallize and show itself for what it is. This is also the story that should make everyone question everything Mora has ever told anyone, because the Miraak situation reveals that Mora has been running the same playbook for thousands of years. Way back in the Merethic era, before recorded history even began, during the time when dragons literally ruled over mortals and the dragon cult was at the height of its power, there was a dragon priest named Miraak. He served on the island of Solstheim, which at that time was still attached to mainland Skyrim. Miraak had his own temple, his own followers, and by all accounts, he was initially loyal to the dragons who had elevated him to his position. The dragon cult during this period was essentially the government. Dragon priests weren't just religious leaders. They were administrators, lawmakers, judges, and enforcers. The dragons themselves were worshipped as living gods, and the dragon priests served as intermediaries between the dragons and the common people. It was a system that worked, in the sense that it maintained order and peace, even if that peace came at the cost of everyone living under dragon rule. Miraak was part of this system. He was a dragon priest, but he was also something else, something the dragons might not have fully understood at the time. Miraak was dragonborn. Being dragonborn means possessing the soul of a dragon inside a mortal body. It means you can absorb the souls of dragons you kill, permanently ending their existence and taking their power for yourself. It means you can learn the Tome, the dragon language that shapes reality through words, far more easily than any normal person. You're not just a mortal who can speak dragon language. You're something in between dragon and mortal, neither fully one nor the other. Miraak knew he was dragonborn. He knew he had power that even his dragon masters didn't fully comprehend. He was loyal to them, but he also knew he could kill them if he wanted to. And that knowledge, that awareness of his own potential, must have been constantly gnawing at him. Then, somehow, Miraak got his hands on a black book. Nobody knows exactly how this happened. The accounts don't say whether he found it by accident, whether someone gave it to him, or whether Hermaeus Mora deliberately placed it where Miraak would find it. But given everything we know about Mora's methods, the smart money is on option 3. Mora wanted Miraak to find that book. He wanted the first dragonborn to enter Apocrypha. He wanted to meet the single most powerful mortal alive at that time. Once Miraak cracked that black book open and entered Apocrypha, he met Hermaeus Mora face the writhing mass of tentacles, and Mora made him an offer he couldn't refuse. In exchange for serving the Daedric prince, Mora would teach Miraak a dragon shout that no one else knew, a shout powerful enough to enslave the minds of both mortals and dragons. This shout was called Bendwil Golhadov in the dragon language, and it was exactly what the name suggests. It bends the will of whoever hears it, forcing them to obey the person who shouts it. Dragons, mortals, even other dragonborn could theoretically be controlled by this shout. Think about what Mora was offering. Miraak was already a dragon priest, which meant he already had authority over common people. But this was power that could let him command the very dragons he served. This was power that would make him not just a priest, not just a ruler, but a god king capable of enslaving everyone around him. This was the kind of power that could reshape civilization. Miraak took the deal. Why wouldn't he? From his perspective, he was being offered the keys to absolute power by a being who knew more than anyone else in existence. He probably thought he was clever, making an alliance with Hermaeus Mora to gain strength he could never achieve on his own. He probably thought he was in control of the situation, that he was using Mora just as much as Mora was using him. He was wrong, of course, but he wouldn't realize that for thousands of years. So, Mora taught him bend will, word by word, piece by piece, and Miraak started practicing it. He started testing it. And then he turned on his dragon masters with a vengeance that must have been building for years. Miraak didn't just rebel quietly, he went to war. He started using bend will on dragons, enslaving them, forcing them to serve him instead of the dragon cult. He began devouring their souls, something that should be impossible because dragon souls are supposed to be immortal and return to life after their bodies are destroyed. But Miraak was dragonborn, which meant he could permanently kill them by absorbing their essence. Every dragon he killed made him stronger. Every soul he consumed added to his power. 3 other dragon priests joined his rebellion: Ahzidal, Dukan, and Zachrisos. These weren't just any priests. These were powerful individuals in their own right, each with mastery over specific elements and forms of magic. They became Miraak's acolyte priests, his inner circle, his generals in the war against the dragons. Together, they formed a faction powerful enough to threaten the entire dragon cult. The timing of Miraak's rebellion is crucial here. This was happening during the Dragon War, the period when dragons were fighting against human rebels across Skyrim. The ancient Nord heroes Hakon One-Eye, Gormlaith, Goldenhild, and Feldir the Old were leading the resistance against Alduin the World Eater and his dragon allies. These were desperate times. The dragons were losing control, mortals were rising up, and the entire world order was collapsing. And in the middle of all this chaos, these 3 Nord heroes came to Miraak begging for his help. They knew he was dragonborn. They knew he was the only person alive who could permanently kill dragons by absorbing their souls. They needed him to join the fight against Alduin to help them end the dragon threat forever. With Miraak's power combined with their own, they could actually win the war. Miraak refused. He didn't refuse because he was afraid. He didn't refuse because he thought they would lose. He refused because he had zero interest in being humanity's champion or savior. He wanted power for himself. He wanted to rule, not to liberate. Why would he help these rebels overthrow the dragons, just so mortals could govern themselves? Miraak's vision was to replace dragon rule with his own rule. Same system, different tyrant at the top. This refusal is important because it establishes what kind of person Miraak was. He wasn't a freedom fighter. He wasn't rebelling because he believed dragons were wrong to rule mortals. He was rebelling because he wanted to be the one ruling. His entire motivation was personal power and ambition. Hermaeus Mora didn't corrupt a good man into becoming evil. He found someone who already had that ambition burning inside him and gave him the tools to act on it. The dragons, obviously, didn't take kindly to one of their priests rebelling and killing them. They couldn't let this stand. If a dragon priest could successfully revolt, it would inspire other mortals to try the same thing. The entire power structure of the dragon cult depended on mortals believing dragons were invincible, unquestionable, divine. Miraak was proving that wrong with every dragon soul he devoured. So the dragons decided to make an example of him. They gathered their forces and razed Miraak's temple on Solstheim to the ground. The temple was completely destroyed, burned, and shattered, reduced to ruins. But destroying a building wasn't enough. They needed to kill Miraak himself to prove that rebellion led to death. They sent Vahlok the jailer, another dragon priest who remained loyal to the dragons, to deal with Miraak personally. Now, calling someone the jailer as a title is interesting because it implies Vahlok's specialty was imprisonment and containment, not just killing. He was sent to capture or neutralize Miraak to make sure the first dragonborn couldn't continue his rebellion. The battle between Miraak and Vahlok was absolutely catastrophic. We're not talking about a normal fight. We're talking about 2 dragon priests, both masters of the tomb, both wielding power that could level mountains, going at each other with everything they had. The battle was so destructive, so incredibly violent, that it literally tore Solstheim away from mainland Skyrim. Let me repeat that. Their fight was so intense that it ripped an entire island off the continent. The northern coast of Skyrim was physically separated from the mainland by the sheer force of the magical energies being thrown around. That's not metaphor or exaggeration. The geography of Tamriel was permanently changed by this battle. That's the level of power these two were operating at. Vahlok was winning. Despite everything Miraak had learned from Hermaeus Mora, despite all the dragon souls he'd absorbed, despite Bendwill and all his other powers, Vahlok was about to deliver the killing blow. Miraak was on the verge of death. The rebellion was over. The dragons would have their victory. And then Hermaeus Mora intervened. At the last possible second, right before Vahlok could finish Miraak off, Hermaeus Mora pulled Miraak into Apocrypha. The tentacles reached through reality, grabbed the first Dragonborn, and yanked him out of Nirn entirely. One moment, Miraak was there, dying, defeated. The next moment he was gone, pulled into Mora's realm, where the dragons couldn't follow. The official story, the way Mora tells it, is that he saved Miraak's life. He rescued his champion from certain death. He gave Miraak sanctuary in Apocrypha, where the dragons couldn't reach him. Isn't Hermaeus Mora generous? Isn't he loyal to his servants? Look how he protects those who serve him faithfully. Except that's complete nonsense, and anyone paying attention should have realized it immediately. What actually happened was, Hermaeus Mora imprisoned Miraak. He didn't save him, he trapped him. Miraak spent the next several thousand years stuck in Apocrypha, unable to leave, unable to return to Tamriel, unable to do anything except serve Mora and stew in his growing hatred of the prince who saved him. Think about it from Miraak's perspective. You make a deal with a Daedric prince to gain power. You successfully rebel against the dragons. You become incredibly powerful, strong enough to threaten the entire dragon cult. You're on the verge of achieving everything you wanted. And then, at your moment of defeat, your supposed ally rescues you by locking you in an infinite library prison for literal millennia. That's not salvation, that's betrayal. That's taking someone who thought they were getting a good deal and revealing that the contract had fine print they never saw. Mora got exactly what he wanted, a dragonborn under his complete control, unable to refuse orders, unable to escape, trapped forever in a realm where Mora's word is absolute law. And the timing is suspicious as hell. Mora waited until Miraak was about to die before intervening. He didn't save Miraak when the battle started. He didn't help during the fight. He let Vahlok beat Miraak to the edge of death first. Why? Because Miraak needed to be desperate. He needed to be in a position where being pulled into Apocrypha felt like being saved, where he would be grateful to Mora instead of questioning what was happening. It's the perfect manipulation. Make someone think you rescued them when really you're just changing one prison for another. Miraak went from being about to die to being immortal but trapped. From Mora's perspective, that's probably an upgrade. From Miraak's perspective, after a few centuries of being unable to leave Apocrypha, it probably felt worse than death would have been. The dragons gave Vahlok the title Guardian after this battle. His new job was to rule Solstheim and watch for any signs of Miraak's return. The island became essentially a prison perimeter, with Vahlok as the warden making sure the prisoners stayed gone. Vahlok took this duty seriously, remaining on Solstheim for the rest of his life, never taking his eyes off the place where Miraak vanished. But Vahlok didn't understand what actually happened. He thought Miraak was dead or banished to some distant corner of oblivion. He didn't know Miraak was in Apocrypha, still alive, still conscious, still aware, spending every single day plotting his escape and growing to hate Hermaeus Mora with every fiber of his being. Fast forward several thousand years. The Dragon War ended, the dragon cult fell. The dragons were mostly killed or driven into hiding. Alduin was sent forward in time by the ancient Nord heroes using an Elder Scroll. Civilization continued. Empires rose and fell. The Septim dynasty came and went. Nobody remembered Miraak except in vague legends. His temple on Solstheim was buried and forgotten. And then the Fourth Era arrived, and with it came the last Dragonborn. The last Dragonborn appeared in Skyrim, killed dragons, absorbed their souls, learned the Thu'um, defeated Alduin. They were doing everything Miraak did, but better, faster, with more power. And Miraak, still trapped in Apocrypha, watching through whatever senses Hermaeus Mora allowed him to maintain connection with Nirn, saw his chance. If the last Dragonborn was killing dragons and absorbing souls, Mira could steal those souls. He could reach out from Apocrypha and intercept the souls before the last Dragonborn absorbed them. It would make him stronger. Strong enough, maybe, to finally break free from Mora's prison and return to Tamriel to finish what he started thousands of years ago. So Miraak started influencing the people of Solstheim. He couldn't leave Apocrypha himself, but he could reach into their minds while they slept. He controlled them, made them his puppets, forced them to build a new temple in his honor. The All-Maker stones, ancient monoliths sacred to the Skal, were corrupted and turned into focal points for Miraak's mind control. People would gather around these stones and work for hours building shrines to Miraak, then wake up with no memory of what they'd done. And whenever the last Dragonborn killed a dragon, Miraak would appear. His form would manifest semi-transparent and ghostly, walk up to the dragon's corpse, and absorb the soul before the Dragonborn could. He'd mock them, tell them the dragon's soul was his to claim, and vanish back to Apocrypha with his stolen power. This is incredibly violating on multiple levels. Dragon souls aren't just power-ups, they're consciousness. Miraak was stealing the essence of dead dragons, souls that rightfully belonged to the last Dragonborn by the laws of combat and Dragonborn nature. He was reaching across dimensions to rob them, and there was nothing the Dragonborn could do to stop it from happening. Eventually, the last Dragonborn travels to Solstheim to investigate what's happening. They find Miraak's temple, now rebuilt by the controlled population. They find a black book, they read it, and they're pulled into Apocrypha, face to face with Miraak for the first time. Miraak is arrogant, incredibly arrogant. He calls himself the first Dragonborn, which is true. He claims to be more powerful than the last Dragonborn, which might also be true given how many souls he's absorbed over thousands of years. He tells you straight up that he's going to return to Tamriel, and when he does, he's going to conquer everything. The dragons, the Empire, all of Tamriel, everything will kneel before him. You're just another dragon soul waiting to be devoured. But he can't leave Apocrypha without Hermaeus Mora's permission. He's still trapped, still imprisoned, still bound by whatever deal or curse keeps him there. So his whole plan revolves around getting powerful enough that Mora either lets him go or can't stop him from leaving. And this is where Hermaeus Mora starts playing both sides against each other. Mora appears to the last Dragonborn and presents himself as their ally. He teaches them the second word of Bendwill for free, just hands it over. He explains that Miraak has betrayed him, that Miraak harbors fantasies of rebellion and can't be trusted. He wants the Dragonborn to defeat Miraak and take his place as Mora's champion. It's all very straightforward, except it's complete manipulation. Mora isn't actually opposed to Miraak's goals. He's just decided that the last Dragonborn is more useful than Miraak at this point. Miraak has been stewing in resentment for thousands of years. He's difficult to control, constantly looking for ways to escape, a rebellious servant who obeys orders but hates every second of it. The last Dragonborn is fresh, naive, doesn't understand what they're getting into. They're a better tool. So Mora engineers a situation where his two Dragonborn champions fight each other to the death, and he wins regardless of who survives. But to make this happen, Mora needs the last Dragonborn to learn the third word of Bendwill. The first two words aren't enough to defeat Miraak. The full shout is necessary. And Mora isn't going to just give that away. That would be too easy, too straightforward. No, the third word requires a price. Hermaeus Mora demands the ancient secrets of the Skal. The Skal, remember, have resisted Hermaeus Mora for thousands of years. Their oral traditions, passed from shaman to shaman, contain knowledge about the history of Solstheim, the nature of the All-Maker, and secrets that predate human civilization on the island. Mora has been trying to get these secrets for ages, and the Skal have refused him every single time. Their knowledge can't be written down, can't be stolen from books, can only be given willingly by someone who knows it. The last Dragonborn has to go to Storn Crag Strider, the Skal's spiritual leader, and convince him to give up the secrets. And Storn, this old man who spent his entire life protecting his people's knowledge from Hermaeus Mora, agrees. Not because he wants to, not because he thinks it's a good idea, but because he believes it's the only way to save his people from Mirak's influence and to help the Dragonborn stop a greater threat. So Storn opens the black book. The secrets flow from his mind. Hermaeus Mora appears as tentacles bursting from the pages. And instead of just taking the knowledge gently, instead of doing this painlessly, Mora rips the secrets directly from Storn's mind with such violence that it kills him instantly. Storn collapses dead on the floor, murdered by the very being he'd spent his life opposing, betrayed by the fact that his knowledge was finally given away. And Hermaeus Mora doesn't care. He got what he wanted. He got the skull secrets. He murdered an innocent man to get them. And without missing a beat, he hands over the third word of Bendwill to the last Dragonborn, like they just completed a normal transaction. The last Dragonborn now has everything they need to confront Mirak. They travel back into Apocrypha, make their way to the summit where Mirak waits, and the final battle begins. The fight with Mirak is brutal. He's got thousands of years of experience. He's got countless dragon souls powering his Tuam. He summons spectral dragons to help him fight. He uses Bend Will on you, forcing you to temporarily serve him. He teleports around the battlefield, throws powerful spells, and fights with a level of skill that comes from millennia of practice. But eventually, inevitably, the last Dragonborn starts winning. Mirak's health drops, he's losing, he's about to be defeated. And the moment Mirak realizes he's going to die, he tries to escape. Mirak doesn't fight to the end like a warrior. He doesn't accept death with honor. He runs. He dives into the pool of acid, into the ink seas of Apocrypha, trying to get away, trying to hide in Mora's realm where he's lived for thousands of years. And Hermaeus Mora says no. A massive tentacle erupts from the ink, impales Miraak through the chest, and lifts him into the air. Miraak is suspended there, dying, betrayed by the being he served for thousands of years. And Hermaeus Mora delivers this line with what can only be described as casual contempt. Did you think you could escape me, Mirak? You can hide nothing from me here. No matter. I have found a new Dragonborn to serve me. Then Mora drains Mirak's soul. The first Dragonborn doesn't even get the dignity of being absorbed by another Dragonborn. Hermaeus Mora takes the soul himself, adds it to his collection of knowledge, and discards Mirak's body like trash. Thousands of years of service, thousands of years of imprisonment, and Mirak's reward for all of it is being murdered the instant he's no longer useful and replaced without a second thought. Then, Mora turns to the last Dragonborn. He tells them that Mirak harbored fantasies of rebellion, that they should learn from his example. Serve faithfully, serve without question, and they'll be richly rewarded. It's a threat disguised as advice. It's Mora telling you exactly what will happen if you try to resist him. You'll end up like Mirak, dead, drained, replaced, forgotten. The last Dragonborn absorbs what remains of Mirak's soul and power. They're now Mora's champion, whether they want it to be or not. They're bound to the same service that destroyed Mirak, and there's no quest to break free from this, no option to refuse. The game just ends with you being Hermaeus Mora's newest tool, his newest instrument, his newest champion who will eventually be discarded just like Mirak was. The Mirak situation reveals everything wrong with Hermaeus Mora. He doesn't save his servants, he imprisons them. He doesn't reward loyalty, he exploits it. He plays both sides of every conflict to ensure he wins. He murders innocent people like Storn without remorse. He executes his own champions the moment they become inconvenient. And he does all of this while presenting himself as a generous patron offering knowledge and power. The first Dragonborn spent thousands of years serving Hermaeus Mora and died for it. What makes anyone think the last Dragonborn's fate will be any different? Let's rewind a bit and talk about how Hermaeus Mora first approaches the last Dragonborn in Skyrim's base game, before any DLC, because this questline is maybe the clearest example of how Mora operates. This is him at his most manipulative, his most cruel, his most calculated, and it all starts with what seems like an innocent favor for the College of Winterhold. The college sends you north to talk to Septimus Signus, this old mage living alone in an ice cave in one of the most remote, inhospitable parts of Skyrim. When you find him, it's immediately clear something is very wrong with this man. He is not just eccentric or odd, his mind is completely shattered. He talks in broken sentences, jumps between topics without warning, references things that make no sense, and freely admits that his sanity is basically gone. And he tells you exactly why. He read an Elder Scroll. For those who don't know, Elder Scrolls are these artifacts of immense power that exist outside normal time and space. They contain information about past, present, and future, prophecies and histories written in a language only certain people can read. Reading an Elder Scroll without proper preparation and training can blind you, drive you completely insane, or kill you outright. The knowledge contained in them is too much for mortal minds to handle safely. Septimus read one. He somehow got his hands on an Elder Scroll and looked into it, and the experience broke him. But it also gave him an obsession. He's fixated on this Dwemer logbox he found, a sealed container from the disappeared Dwemer civilization. Septimus believes with absolute certainty that this box contains the heart of Lorkhan itself. Now, for context, the Heart of Lorkhan is one of the most significant artifacts in all of Elder Scrolls lore. Lorkhan was the god who convinced the other Aedra to create Mundus, the mortal world, which required them to sacrifice much of their divinity. As punishment, the other Aedra ripped Lorkhan's heart from his body and cast it down to Nirn, where it landed in what would become Red Mountain in Morrowind. That heart became a source of incredible power. The Dwemer found it and tried to use it to create their own god, a massive brass construct called the Numidium. The Tribunal, 3 Dunmer who became living gods, used tools to tap into its power and achieve divinity. The heart was central to the plot of Morrowind. It's not just some trinket, it's one of the most powerful objects in the universe, a literal piece of a dead god that still pulses with divine energy. And Septimus is absolutely convinced this little Dwemer cube contains it. He's dedicated years, maybe decades, to figuring out how to open this box because he believes the heart of Lorkhan is inside waiting for him. He has no proof, no evidence. Just this unshakable conviction that probably comes from the brain damage he sustained reading an Elder Scroll. But he can't figure out how to open the lockbox on his own. The Dwemer were master craftsmen and engineers, and their security measures are beyond anything most mages can understand. So Septimus has a plan. He knows the Dwemer had a device in one of their ruins, specifically in a place called the Tower of Mzark deep in Blackreach, that could interface with Elder Scrolls. He needs someone to go there, find an Elder Scroll, use this Dwemer device to extract the scroll's knowledge into a blank lexicon, and bring that information back to him. So he sends the Dragonborn on this massive, incredibly dangerous quest. You have to travel to Alftand, one of the most dangerous Dwemer ruins in Skyrim. Fight your way through Falmer, Dwemer automatons, centurions, and all manner of deadly traps. Then you have to navigate through the ruins to reach Blackreach, which is this enormous cavern beneath the mountains filled with its own ecosystem and more dangers. Then you need to find the Tower of Mzark inside Blackreach, figure out the incredibly complex Dwemer puzzle mechanism, successfully interface with an Elder Scroll without going blind or insane, and extract its knowledge into the lexicon. This entire process takes hours. It's one of the longest quest chains in the game, and you're doing all of this so a mad hermit living in an ice cave can open a box he found. When you return with the ruined lexicon, Septimus is overjoyed. He's finally got the information he needs. He reads the lexicon, analyzes the data, figures out the lock mechanism, and then realizes something unfortunate. The lockbox requires Dwemer blood to open. Not symbolically, actually, literally needs blood from a Dwemer to unlock. There's just one small problem with that requirement. The Dwemer are extinct, completely gone. Every single Dwemer across all of Tamriel vanished simultaneously in an instant during the Battle of Red Mountain thousands of years ago. Nobody knows where they went. Whether they achieved some kind of ascension, were erased from existence, scattered across time, or something else entirely is still a mystery. But they're gone, and that means their blood is impossible to obtain. Except Septimus has a theory. The Dwemer were elves, specifically a type of elf. If you mix blood from all the other elven races, maybe it will be close enough to Dwemer blood to trick the lock mechanism. It's completely insane logic that shouldn't work, but Septimus is convinced it will. So he needs blood samples from 5 different mer races: high elves, wood elves, dark elves, orcs who are technically elves in Elder Scrolls lore, descended from the followers of the Daedric prince Trinimac, who became Malakath, and Falmer the twisted, blind, degenerated elves, who once were the snow elves. And here's where the quest gets really dark. To get these blood samples, you need to kill members of each race. The game doesn't let you take blood from living people. You have to find corpses of each elven race, use Septimus's essence extractor on them, and collect their blood. You're essentially going on a murder spree, killing 5 different people from 5 different races, just so this mad scholar can open a box. But once you agree to help collect the blood, something happens when you try to leave Septimus's outpost. Hermaeus Mora appears as the Wretched Abyss, this dark, swirling void with eyes and a voice that seems to come from everywhere and nowhere simultaneously. And he reveals what's actually been going on this whole time. Mora tells you straight up that Septimus has been his servant for years. Everything Septimus has done, every bit of research, every obsession with the lockbox has been under Mora's influence. Septimus thought he was following his own curiosity, his own scholarly pursuits. He thought he was making his own choices. But Mora was manipulating him the entire time, pushing him toward this exact moment, using him as a tool to get what Mora actually wanted. And Mora casually mentions that Septimus's usefulness will run out soon. Not might run out, will run out. It's already decided. Septimus has a shelf life, an expiration date, and Mora is just waiting for the right moment to discard him. You can choose to ally with Hermaeus Mora or tell him you won't help, but it doesn't matter. The quest continues exactly the same way, regardless of what you choose. Your response has 0 impact on the outcome, because Mora doesn't care what you say. He knows what's going to happen either way. So you go collect the blood samples. High elf blood, wood elf blood, dark elf blood, orc blood, Falmer blood. 5 murders to complete a mad scholar's obsession. And you bring them all back to Septimus, who is absolutely ecstatic. He mixes the blood using his essence extractor, creating this hybrid elven blood that theoretically approximates Dwemer blood. He approaches the lockbox with his mixture, applies it to the mechanism, and the lockbox opens. The lock doesn't just click open, it transforms. The lockbox essentially turns into a tunnel, a passageway leading inward toward its center. Septimus walks into this tunnel, following it to the heart of the cube, where he finds a pedestal. And on that pedestal is a book. Just a book. Not the heart of Lorcan. No divine artifact. No God's heart still beating with immortal power. Just a book with a black cover sitting on a pedestal. Septimus's disappointment lasts about 2 seconds. Then he starts to see something. His eyes go wide. He begins to speak in wonder. What is this? It's just a book? I can see. The world beyond burns in my mind. It's marvelous. And then Hermaeus Mora kills him. Septimus doesn't just die. He doesn't collapse peacefully or fade away. He literally disintegrates. His body turns to ash in an instant, reduced to a pile of dust, his entire physical form erased from existence. One moment he's standing there, experiencing some kind of revelation or vision. The next moment he's ash scattered on the ground. Hermaeus Mora murdered him, the servant who spent years, possibly decades, working to open this lockbox. The scholar who dedicated his entire life to this obsession, the man who went mad reading Elder Scrolls in Mora's service, killed instantly the second he completed his assigned task. And then Hermaeus Mora appears to the Dragonborn and delivers his explanation like nothing wrong just happened. He tells you the box contained the Ogma Infinium, his artifact. It had been sealed away to keep its knowledge from the world. But Mora wants it back in circulation. He wants its dangerous knowledge spreading again. And now, the Dragonborn can claim it as a reward for helping him retrieve it. He also names you his champion, whether you like it or not, whether you agreed to serve him or not. You're his champion now. You just helped a Daedric prince murder an innocent man and retrieve a weapon of forbidden knowledge. And Mora presents this like you should be honored. The really insidious part of this entire quest is how completely Mora manipulated everyone involved. Septimus thought he was pursuing his own research. He thought the logbooks contained the heart of Lorkhan because Mora made him think that. The belief was planted, the obsession was cultivated. Every choice Septimus made that led him to that ice cave, that lockbox, that moment of disintegration, all of it was Mora pulling strings. The Dragonborn was manipulated too. You were sent by the College of Winterhold, thinking you were helping a scholar, then you thought you were just doing a favor. Then Mora revealed himself, and you thought you were making a choice about whether to serve him. But none of it mattered. Mora got exactly what he wanted, regardless of what anyone chose or believed. The outcome was predetermined. Everyone was dancing on strings they couldn't see. And the lie, the specific, deliberate lie. Mora told Septimus the box contained the heart of Lorkhan. This wasn't a misunderstanding or Septimus jumping to the wrong conclusion. Mora actively fostered that belief, probably planted it directly in Septimus's mad mind, because that obsession would drive Septimus to work tirelessly to open the box. The truth that it was just the Ogma Infinium would never have motivated the same level of dedication. So Mora lied, used that lie to manipulate years of someone's life, and then killed them for it. This is Hermaeus Mora's standard operating procedure. Find someone with useful skills or knowledge. Give them an obsession, a goal, a belief that will drive them to do what you want. Let them think they're pursuing their own interests. Use them until they accomplish what you need. Then discard them, usually violently. Repeat with the next tool. Septimus Cygnus was a scholar once, a member of the College of Winterhold, someone presumably respected in academic circles, brilliant enough to write books about Elder Scrolls and have them taken seriously. And he ended his life as a mad hermit in an ice cave, murdered by the being he served, reduced to ash for the crime of completing his assignment. That's the reward for serving Hermaeus Mora faithfully. That's what being his champion actually means. You're useful until you're not, and when you stop being useful, you stop existing. Now we need to jump to Elder Scrolls Online, because this is legitimately where everything we thought we knew about Hermaeus Mora gets completely deconstructed and rebuilt into something far more disturbing. ESO introduced a storyline that, if you pay attention to what it actually reveals, should make everyone question not just Hermaeus Mora, but the entire nature of reality in the Elder Scrolls universe. The storyline centers around a Daedric prince nobody had ever heard of before, not mentioned in any previous game, not referenced in any lore book, not whispered about in legend. Complete blank spot in all of recorded history. Her name is Aethelia, and she's the Prince of Paths, the Fate Changer, the Mistress of the Untraveled Road, the Unweaver of Reality. And nobody knew she existed because Hermaeus Mora erased her from existence. Not just killed her, not just imprisoned her somewhere hidden, he removed all memory of her from every mind in the universe. From mortals, from other Daedric princes, from the Aedra, from everyone, including himself. Let me repeat that because it's absolutely crucial. Hermaeus Mora, the Prince of Knowledge, who claims to know everything, deliberately made himself forget something. He created a gap in his own omniscience. He took knowledge he possessed and removed it from his own mind. The story of why is complicated and reveals so much about Mora's actual motivations and fears. Way back before recorded history, Aethelia existed and had power over fate and paths. Her sphere was the ability to see all possible paths reality could take and to change which path became real. She could look at a branching timeline, pick the branch she wanted, and make that the reality everyone experienced. She could rewrite cause and effect. She could take events that had already happened and make it so they never occurred. She could alter the flow of time and fate itself. For most beings, this would be theoretical power, abstract and philosophical. For Athelia, it was literal and practical. She could and did change reality constantly, sometimes seemingly without even realizing she was doing it. Her nature was such that she viewed reality as fluid, changeable, malleable. Fixed timelines and predetermined outcomes were foreign concepts to her. Everything was mutable. Everything could be different. This caused massive problems for everyone else. If reality itself keeps getting rewritten, how do you maintain any kind of consistent existence? How do you build civilizations when history might change tomorrow? How do you make plans when cause and effect might be reversed next week? How do you even maintain a coherent identity when the events that shaped you might be retroactively altered? And more specifically, how does Hermaeus Mora maintain his library of all knowledge when that knowledge keeps becoming false because Athelia changed what actually happened? This was Mora's nightmare. His entire purpose, his whole sphere of influence, his reason for existing, was to collect and preserve knowledge. But knowledge has to be accurate to be valuable. If you're recording events that then get retroactively unwritten, you're not preserving truth, you're just accumulating fiction. If the past keeps changing, there's no such thing as reliable historical record. Mora's library would become meaningless, just a collection of stories about things that might have happened in timelines that no longer exist. So, Hermaeus Mora went to the other Daedric princes with a proposal. They needed to deal with Athelia. Her power was too dangerous. She needed to be imprisoned, removed from reality, where she couldn't keep rewriting everything. And more than that, everyone needed to forget she existed, because remembering her might give her power to influence reality from whatever prison they put her in. Most of the princes apparently went along with this plan. The specifics of who agreed and who didn't aren't completely clear, but we know Vermina and Periite were explicitly opposed. Vermina, the Prince of Nightmares, and Periite, the Prince of Tasks and Pestilence, both argued that you can't just imprison another prince for something they might do. That's not how Daedric hierarchy works. Princes have their spheres, and those spheres are part of reality. You can't just remove one without consequences. And more importantly, messing with everyone's memories, including the memories of other Daedric princes, was crossing way too many lines. That wasn't just sealing Athelia away, that was violating the minds of every conscious being in existence, rewriting their thoughts without consent, removing pieces of their lived experience. Vermina especially would have found this appalling because dreams and memories are her domain. Mora was trampling all over her sphere to accomplish his goal. But Hermaeus Mora did it anyway. He found a way to seal Athelia in a prison unlike any other. The prison wasn't a place, it was a state of being. As long as nobody remembered Athelia existed, she was trapped. The act of being forgotten was the imprisonment itself. She existed in a space between thought and reality, unable to act, unable to influence anything, unable to even fully be, because there were no minds holding knowledge of her existence. And then Mora erased her from all memory. Every being who knew about Athelia forgot. Every record that mentioned her was altered or destroyed. Every prophecy that referenced her was rewritten. The other princes forgot they ever agreed to imprison her. Vermina and Periite forgot their objections. Everyone forgot, including Hermaeus Mora himself. This actually worked for ages. For entire eras of history, Athelia simply didn't exist in anyone's knowledge. The prison held because nobody knew there was something to remember. Reality continued without her, stable and consistent in a way it hadn't been when she was active. Hermaeus Mora's library maintained its accuracy because the past stopped being rewritten. Everything seemed fine, until Torvesart changed everything. Torvesart was Athelia's champion, a Dremora who served her back when she existed. When Mora erased everyone's memory of Athelia, Torvesart forgot too. He didn't even remember that he was her champion or that he was missing something. But thousands of years later, Torvesart found a glyphic, a crystallized piece of memory, knowledge given physical form. This particular glyphic contained information about Athelia. The moment Torvesart touched that glyphic and started to remember, cracks formed in the prison. Because Ithilia's prison wasn't physical, it was conceptual. She was bound by being forgotten. The instant someone remembered she existed, her bonds weakened. It wasn't immediate freedom, but it was the beginning of her escape. And this terrified Hermaeus Mora because his carefully constructed solution was falling apart. Torvesard, now knowing he had once served a Daedric prince, became obsessed with finding the rest of the story. There were 3 glyphics total, each containing part of Mora's sealed memories about Ithelia. The first glyphic told Torvesard that his prince existed and had been erased, but it didn't tell him where she was imprisoned or how to free her. He needed the other glyphics. This kicked off the entire Necrom storyline. Torvesard formed alliances with 2 other Daedric princes, Vermina and Periite, who had also been experiencing strange dreams and gaps in their memories. They didn't know what was missing, but they knew something was wrong. When Torvesard explained what he'd found, they agreed to help him assault Apocrypha itself to find the remaining glyphics. Vermina and Periite had their own reasons for being furious with Mora. When they saw the second glyphic, they remembered that they had explicitly opposed erasing Ithelia. Vermina protested that memories are sacrosanct, that you can't violate the domains of other princes like that. Periite argued that you can't punish someone for something they might possibly do in the future. Both of them told Mora his plan was wrong, that it violated every protocol and understanding between Daedric princes, and Hermaeus Mora did it anyway. He told them the risk was too great, that he had no alternative, that he was sorry but this had to be done. Then he wiped their memories so they wouldn't remember objecting, wouldn't remember Ithelia, wouldn't remember any of it. He violated their minds without consent, removing chunks of their lived experience, turning their explicit rejection of his plan into ignorant acceptance after the fact. The glyphics show this conversation. They show the moment Mora admitted what he was about to do. The second glyphic reveals an argument between the princes. It doesn't matter what you foresee, you can't do this to another prince, or to the rest of us for that matter. Hermaeus Mora, you have seen the damage Prince Ithelia has already done to the fabric of fate. If left unchecked, reality will unravel. All of us must agree, Mora, and I definitely do not. Memories are sacrosanct, as are the domains of the princes. Periite, you can't punish someone for something they might possibly do. Hermaeus Mora, I must. The risk is too great. I'm truly sorry, but there is no alternative. And then he did it anyway. He ignored their objections, violated their autonomy, and erased Ithelia from existence along with everyone's memory of the event. The third glyphic, which Torvesard finally reaches in the Gold Road chapter, shows what happened after Ithelia was defeated. Hermaeus Mora imprisoned her in the Mythos, the oldest and deepest part of Apocrypha, a place that existed before the rest of his realm was fully formed. Then he used artifacts from Azura, Boethia, and Mephala, collectively known as the Good Daedra in Dunmer worship, to bind her there permanently. 3 mortal priests, possessed by these Daedric princes, stood before Mora with the artifacts. One priest hosted Mephala and spoke of tracking Ithelia with the skein. Another hosted Azura and mentioned using the lamp and abolisher. They were tools, mortal bodies temporarily worn by princes to perform the ritual. And then Mora told them all to forget. Not just forget Ithelia, forget the entire battle, forget that they worked together, forget that this happened at all. He was going to erase the memory from every conscious being in existence, turning one of the most significant events in Daedric history into something that never existed in anyone's mind. When Torvesard sees this in the third glyphic, he's furious. His prince wasn't just defeated, she was betrayed by cowards, erased by manipulators who feared what they didn't understand. And now that Torvesard knows the truth, now that he remembers, Ithelia has power again. But here's the twist that makes everything worse. When Torvesard finally reaches Ithelia's prison in the Mythos to free her, he finds it empty. The prison is intact, the bindings are still there, but Ithelia herself is gone. She escaped on her own. The moment Torvesard started remembering her existence, she gained enough power to break free without any help. Ithelia had been waiting. For thousands of years, she existed in this liminal space of being imprisoned by being forgotten, conscious but unable to act, aware but unable to manifest. And the instant someone remembered she existed, even just one person, the prison collapsed. She walked out of the mythos and returned to reality like she'd never been gone. Her realm, Miramore, begins to remanifest. Her followers, the Recollection, start appearing across Tamriel. Reality itself starts showing cracks as Aethelia's power over paths and possibilities reasserts itself. Things that were certain become uncertain. Timelines start branching in impossible ways. The fabric of fate that Hermaeus Mora has spent eons trying to maintain begins to unravel exactly as he feared. And throughout the Gold Road storyline, Hermaeus Mora is working with the player character, the Vestige, to stop Aethelia. He presents himself as the reasonable one, the one trying to prevent reality from collapsing. He's protecting everyone from Aethelia's chaos. He's the hero of this story, trying to save existence itself from a prince who can't control her own power. Except that's not quite true either, because as the story unfolds, it becomes clear that Aethelia isn't malicious. She's not trying to destroy reality. She's trying to understand it, to explore the possibilities, to see what could be. Her power to change fate isn't inherently destructive. It's just incompatible with Mora's need for everything to be recorded and permanent. Aethelia represents change, possibility, choice. She embodies the idea that nothing is fixed, that every moment contains infinite potential futures. She's the prince of what if. What if that choice had gone differently? What if that path had been taken instead? What if reality itself could be different? Hermaeus Mora represents permanence, documentation, fixed knowledge. He needs reality to be stable, so his records stay accurate. He needs the past to be unchangeable, so his library maintains its value. He needs fate to be predetermined, so he can scry it and know what will happen. These two concepts cannot coexist. Either fate is fixed and knowable, or it's fluid and changeable. Either knowledge is permanent, or reality can be rewritten. Mora and Aethelia are diametrically opposed, not because one is good and one is evil, but because their natures contradict each other. And Hermaeus Mora chose to eliminate the contradiction by eliminating Aethelia. Not through honest combat, not through fair negotiation, through manipulation, conspiracy, memory erasure, and imprisonment disguised as prevention. He convinced other princes that Aethelia was dangerous, gathered their power, used it to trap her, and then made everyone forget it happened, so nobody could question whether it was the right decision. In the end, after a lengthy questline involving recovering the 3 Daedric artifacts used in the original binding ritual, Aethelia is sealed away again, but this time she chooses to go willingly. She realizes that her power really is destabilizing reality, in ways she can't fully control. She agrees to be imprisoned again, but only after the player uses a special artifact called Abolisher to sever her connection to the path she was walking. And then Hermaeus Mora erases everyone's memory again. The Vestige forgets the details of what happened. The people of Westweald forget about Aethelia. Reality resets to a state where Aethelia never returned. Mora does the exact same thing he did before, creating the exact same conditions that led to the problem in the first place. The cycle is complete. Aethelia is forgotten. Mora maintains his control over knowledge and fate. And somewhere, somehow, there's probably another Torvesard waiting to remember what was taken from them. This entire storyline reveals something crucial about Hermaeus Mora. He will do absolutely anything to maintain his version of order, including violating the autonomy of other Daedric princes, erasing cosmic events from history, and creating the conditions for the same problem to occur again in the future. He's not protecting reality out of altruism. He's protecting his ability to control the narrative, to be the arbiter of what's true and what's forgotten. And here's the really scary part. If Hermaeus Mora erased Aethelia from existence twice, who else has he erased? How many times has he done this? How many Daedric princes, or Aedra, or other cosmic entities have been written out of reality because they threaten Mora's control over knowledge and fate? We have no way of knowing. By definition, if Mora successfully erases something, we can't know it existed. The absence of evidence isn't evidence of absence. It's just evidence that Mora is really good at what he does. For all we know, there could be dozens of forgotten princes, erased from history because they represented concepts that conflicted with Mora's sphere or threatened his power. The Ithilien situation also reveals Mora's deepest fear. He's terrified of irrelevance. If reality can be rewritten, his library becomes worthless. If fate can be changed, his ability to scry the future loses meaning. If knowledge can be altered retroactively, his entire purpose evaporates. He's not trying to preserve knowledge for its own sake. He's trying to preserve his own importance, his own role, his own power. That's why he's so desperate to control information. That's why he murders servants who've outlived their usefulness. That's why he manipulates champions into doing his bidding. That's why he's willing to commit cosmic crimes that even other Daedric princes find appalling. Because if he loses control of knowledge, he loses everything that makes him what he is. Hermaeus Mora isn't the guardian of wisdom. He's a hoarder, terrified of losing his collection. He's not the master of fate. He's someone desperately trying to ensure fate runs on rails he can predict. He's not the keeper of all knowledge. He's the keeper of knowledge he approves of, with everything else being erased or hidden away. And the worst part, he's probably going to keep getting away with it, because who's going to stop him? The other Daedric princes can't reliably trust their own memories after what he did with Ithilien. Mortals barely understand what's happening on a good day. The Aedra are too diminished or dead to intervene. Mora has made himself indispensable by positioning himself as the only reliable source of information, while simultaneously demonstrating that he's the least reliable source possible. It's the perfect crime. Be the keeper of truth, while actively manipulating what truth is. Be the guardian of knowledge while controlling who gets to know what. Be the prince of fate while actively rigging fate to ensure you always win. And if anyone threatens that position, erase them and make everyone forget they existed in the first place. The Ithilien storyline is the most damning indictment of Hermaeus Mora's character in the entire series. Everything else he's done, murdering Septimus, killing Storn, betraying Miraak, all of that could potentially be explained away as harsh but necessary. But erasing another Daedric prince from existence, twice? That's not necessity, that's tyranny. And it means we can't trust anything Hermaeus Mora has ever told anyone. His origin story? Potentially false. His claims about being ancient? Maybe manufactured. His explanations for why he does what he does? Probably lies designed to make his actions seem reasonable. The entire foundation of his character is built on information he controls, and we now know he's willing and able to falsify that information on a cosmic scale. If you can erase a Daedric prince from reality itself, falsifying your own backstory would be trivial by comparison. So, after diving through literally every game, every storyline, every book, every interaction Hermaeus Mora has had with anyone across the entire Elder Scrolls timeline, what's the final answer? Has Hermaeus Mora been lying to us? Yes. Unequivocally, definitively, absolutely yes. We can point to specific, verifiable lies he's told. We can document his manipulation tactics. We can show a clear pattern of betrayal stretching back thousands of years. We can prove he doesn't actually know everything, that he kills his own servants, that he erases inconvenient truths from history, that he frames imprisonment as salvation and exploitation as opportunity. Hermaeus Mora is dishonest in a way that goes beyond normal Daedric trickery. Other princes might be cruel, or capricious, or dangerous, but they're usually upfront about it. Mehrunes Dagon wants to destroy things. He's honest about that. Molag Bal wants to dominate and corrupt. He doesn't pretend otherwise. Sheogorath is mad. That's literally his whole thing. They are what they appear to be, even if what they are is horrifying. Hermaeus Mora lies about what he is. He presents himself as a benevolent keeper of knowledge, when he's actually a tyrannical information hoarder. He claims to observe without interfering when he constantly manipulates events. He says he's preserving all truth when he actively erases and falsifies it. The disconnect between his presentation and his actions is so vast that it constitutes deception about his nature. But here's what makes it worse. He's not just lying randomly or for petty reasons. Every lie serves a purpose in a larger design. The lie about the heart of Lorcan ensured Septimus stayed motivated. The false promises about rewards keep new servants coming. The manipulation of Mirog's situation let him have a backup plan ready thousands of years in advance. The erasure of Italia eliminated a threat to his control over fate and knowledge. Mora lies systematically, strategically, with clear goals and long-term plans. He's been running these schemes for eons, refining his methods, learning from each interaction how to be more convincing next time. By the Fourth Era, when we encounter him in Skyrim, he's had millennia to perfect the art of manipulation. And he's gotten away with it for so long because he's positioned himself as the ultimate source of truth. How do you fact-check the keeper of all knowledge? How do you verify information from the being who claims to know everything? How do you prove someone is lying when they control access to the evidence that would prove it? You can't, usually. The only reason we know about Ithilien is because someone managed to find memories Mora thought he'd hidden securely enough. The only reason we know about his other lies is because we, as players, get to see multiple perspectives and piece together the contradictions. Characters within the game world don't have that privilege. They only know what they're told, and usually what they're told comes filtered through Mora's influence. The best defense against him might be skepticism. Question everything that comes from him or his followers. Verify information through independent sources when possible. Recognize that forbidden knowledge is forbidden for a reason, and the reason might be that it makes you easier to control rather than because it's too dangerous in itself. Understand that every deal with Mora is weighted in his favor. Every interaction is manipulation. Every promise comes with hidden costs. And most importantly, remember that not knowing something isn't weakness. The Skal understood this. They chose ignorance of certain things to maintain their freedom, and they were right to do so. Sometimes, the cost of knowledge is higher than the value of having it. The last Dragonborn is stuck now. They're Mora's champion, bound to his service, probably forever. There's no quest to break free, no option to refuse the title. The game just ends with you owned by a Daedric prince who has a documented history of murdering his champions when they stop being useful. And knowing what we know about Mirog's fate, about Septimus, about Storn, about everyone who ever served Hermaeus Mora, the last Dragonborn's future looks pretty grim. So next time you're playing an Elder Scrolls game and those tentacles burst from the pages of a black book, remember everything we've talked about. Remember Septimus being disintegrated for completing his life's work. Remember Storn dying to protect the Dragonborn from a threat Mora helped create. Remember Mirog imprisoned for millennia, then executed for trying to escape. Remember Ithilien erased from existence twice for the crime of threatening Mora's control. Remember that every word from Hermaeus Mora's mouth might be a lie. Every promise might be false. Every deal might be weighted against you. Every bit of knowledge might be carefully curated to serve his purposes rather than yours. The tentacles aren't just his appearance. They're how he operates. He reaches out, wraps around you, pulls you in slowly so you don't realize you're being consumed until it's too late. By the time you understand what's happening, you're already in Apocrypha, already reading his books, already accepting his power, already dancing on strings you can't see. Don't trust the tentacles, don't trust the books, don't trust the promises, don't trust the knowledge, and definitely don't trust that eye staring at you through the screen, the one following your camera instead of your character, the one that knows you're there even when nobody else in the game does. Because Hermaeus Mora sees you. He's always seen you. He's been lying to you this whole time. The only question left is what else he's lying about that we haven't figured out yet.